Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Brian Sexton.
And welcome into the Intentional Encourager podcast. I'm your host, Brian Sexton. Thank you for joining us again today. And have you ever met a wellness warrior? If you have not met a wellness warrior, you're about to meet one in my guest today, Caren Cooper. She helps people get well with their health, with their finances, with a lot of other things. And listen, I probably should have prepared for battle today, working with a wellness warrior like Caren Cooper, but it is my honor to have her today on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Caren, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I appreciate you having me on today.
This is going to be fun because I want to start here. What is your definition of a wellness warrior? Because again, I think I love that title because I think people battle. Those are some of the biggest battles that they face in life is battling their weight. I've battled my weight all of my adult life and finances and things like that. How did that come to you? And what does that definition mean to you, wellness warrior?
So how it came, I'll answer how it came to me and then I'll give you the definition. How it came to me was the title. Well, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, so I finally decided to take control of my health. That's kind of like the short version of it. And I had seen many other people do the same and earn extra income doing so. And I finally was like, just had enough and said, yeah, it's time. And it suddenly became a passion of mine, something I didn't know that I was interested in, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And so where it came from is a lot of people were asking me if I was a coach. And when people ask you that, they think you're certified in something. And I don't have any certifications. Like, I'm not a certified coach.
You know, Caren, I don't think you need certifications to be a great coach, because again, it's the knowledge you have here. It's not what's on a piece of paper.
Oh, agreed. But that's not necessarily one of the many who think that, but there are others who don't. So They would be like, well, you're a coach. And, they would think something else of it. So it was like, okay, what am I, because I am a coach, but I don't have the certification. So how do I phrase it so that people are going to be like, oh, wait, she can actually help me. So I came up, actually, it's mine and somebody else that one of my teammates came up with Wellness Warrior, because because it's not just weight wellness, it's overall wellness. And warrior, I'm a New Yorker.
Well, Caren, here's the thing about coaching and things like that. I have helped coach. My son graduated high school in the spring of 2019, a year and a half ago. I helped coach his baseball team. Mm-hmm. Neither the Yankees or the Mets are going to hire me to manage their ball clubs, because
my husband coached my son's baseball team.
Yeah, and to your point, just because someone says they're a coach doesn't make them. But I love the fact, and I didn't mean to jump in there, but I love the fact with you that people said, do you coach? Can you help me? What were you hearing in those conversations with folks that really just said to you, oh my goodness, there is a need here that I can really fill?
I was hearing desperation. I mean, that's what I was, quite frankly. That's how I kind of, it was for me. I just hated the way I looked in pictures. I was miserable, and I played the victim card really well. And one of the things that people don't realize is it's also about the mindset. So when you think of health and wellness, you think of weight. You don't think of what your mind does and how your mindset is. And so that's part of the reason why I kind of share that too. And that's why it's wellness and not like weight. You know what I'm saying? The word weight isn't in there. And when I talk to people, a lot of people are like me, where it was, you're told this is what you do. You go to college, you graduate college, you get a good job, and that's the way it is. And that's what you do. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily the way it is, especially now.
Well, Caren, it's funny. It's almost like you've been eavesdropping into my house, because we've had these conversations with my 20-year-old son, who's a sophomore in college, and they're doing classes virtually and things like that. And he comes to me one day and he said, Dad, why do I need a college degree? Why, I see people my age monetizing on YouTube and things like that. And I said, look, the discipline of a degree is that you started something and you completed it. And the marketability behind it for employers is they see stability, they see stick-to-itiveness, they see these other things that come with it. And I love what you just said there, because I think you have a lot of young people kind of questioning, why are we doing things and things like that. I want to go here for just a minute, because you also said something there I want to extrapolate a little more conversation out of, is the fact of, you said you were sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yep.
And there are a lot of people during this pandemic that are feeling exactly the same way. Do you remember the point? And we're fast forwarding a little bit, and we'll come back and really dive into your story. But I want to know what that V8 moment is. I call it that V8 moment.
That aha moment?
Yeah, that aha moment. Yeah. Well, V8, I mean, people just recognize the commercial. If you're old enough, if you're old like me. Yeah, you hit yourself on that. I could have had a V8. Yeah. They need to sponsor the Intentional Encourager podcast, by the way, because I have a lot of V8 moments.
Are they still around?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, you know what? Listen, I had a customer that made salsa, and that their secret ingredient was, and they're not in business any longer, but that was their secret ingredient, was spicy V8 juice. Yeah, it was, and their salsa was delicious. So again, if anybody from V8 is listening, contact me at the Intentional Encourager podcast. We have a sponsorship opportunity for you. But what was that moment for you, Caren? We've gone off the rails a little bit. But what was that moment for you where you just said, wow, I did not realize how sick and tired and I was of being sick and tired?
I don't know that there was a specific moment per se. It was just like, you know what? I had watched all these people that I exercise with lose weight and start earning an income. I had, I quit smoking. That's what it was. I quit smoking, and like, it was a few years after I'd quit smoking, and I was exercising, and I wasn't eating right. I'll be very honest, but I was still like, wait, when you quit smoking, you're supposed to feel good. Like, how come I don't feel good? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like from the minute you put on your running shoes, you go buy these nice Nikes or whatever, you put those on. They're supposed to be a magical transformation, right, Caren?
But it was 4 years later. Like, it wasn't even like I was expecting it. Like,
right.
5
That's
minutes
exactly
after I quit.
yeah,
It was literally like, what? And I was like, well, what's going on? And it's funny that I think of it now, because, people like think like that with the health and wellness. So that was kind of the moment for me when I was like, because I was also like, how do I fit this? I was the type of person who I didn't have the time. I didn't have the time to take on an extra business. Like, how was I going to do this? I have 2 kids. They my daughter was in softball, my son's in baseball. How was I going to fit? And I worked full-time job. Like, how was I going to fit?
God bless you. I've been there and done that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my
you
son,
feel like
my
you
daughter's
live
a sophomore in college also, by the way.
Well, Caren, you feel like as a parent, and I love this conversation we're having, because I'm having flashbacks, because, when I wasn't coaching my son's freshman year of playing baseball, when I wasn't coaching, my wife sat together on cold April days in West Virginia and froze together. We were huddled up it's like, oh, you guys are so cute together. Like, no, we're just cold.
Just cold.
Yeah. And then, when my son played high school basketball, I did PA for the game. So my wife and I never sat together. So there were many a nights, and I have flashbacks, that we would come in, literally grab something to eat, or just grab the gear and get something on the way or on the way home. And you for 4 years you lived that, and you had a son and a daughter. We just did it with one, you did it with 2. And so my proverbial hats off to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was concession food. I mean, it was, you're at a baseball field and you're eating concession food, and then, because they were both in the same league when they were younger. And then my daughter went on to high school softball, and my son still plays travel baseball. He's 14, she's 19, but oh my God, there was a Wendy's right by the baseball field. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, literally, we would leave the field, go to Wendy's, go to the drive-thru, get food, or figure out something in the house, because, we worked, and my husband coached also like you, and it was just like you kind of throw something together kind of a thing,
Yeah.
or what, just get a burger at the concession stand. It was totally that lifestyle for the longest time.
You don't feel like you're ever going to eat a regular meal
No,
again
never.
and for us, it was, we got a break. So our break was, baseball ended in April, late April. So from May to, well, my son's senior year, he played soccer for his Christian school. So we had a May to August break. And then from September straight through to the end of April, it was like
Yep.
that for us. Like, are we going to eat a regular meal again?
Yes, it was. See, and we're because we're baseball and softball, so we're spring. So we
Oh,
start
yeah.
in
Yeah.
April, or we start in like maybe February, March is when the practices start, and then it runs through the summer and everything. I mean, my son at the moment, he's going to be doing his team has strength and conditioning, and he's a
Yeah.
pitcher, so that starts in January. So
Oh,
now it's like
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's like January to the summer.
Yeah. I was a high school baseball pitcher. Trust me. And it's far different today. I played in the late 80s, early, late 80s to 1990 was my senior year of high school. And our coach always made us run, starting in January, because you were a pitcher.
Yep.
You had to build up your legs, and our coach made us run. And so, yeah, you learn how to function and do those things. God bless you. This should be the Intentional Psychiatry podcast. We're just gonna cry on each other's shoulders here for the next 40 minutes or so. Just hang with us as we weep together. Karen and I weep together. But no, God bless you. I mean, those days to me are just, I look back on those times of your kids playing sports, and you're just like, man, oh man. But you had that moment for you, like, this is not healthy for me in our lifestyle. So what did you begin to do to change some of those things that you were doing? And then, how did others see that change? Because something had to happen for people to see what happened to you and to respond accordingly, to reach out and say, Karen, can you help me do the same thing?
So I had been exercising with all of these people who joined the health and wellness company. And so I finally said yes to the opportunity to join them in this health and wellness company and partner with this health and wellness company. And so that's what I did. I finally was like, okay, fine. I'll drink the Kool-Aid, as we say. And so that's what happened. So what happened was, two things happened with me. I lost weight in terms of body weight. So I lost like 20 pounds. But what happened also was that my mindset changed dramatically. So I was very much the person who was like, played the victim amazing. So everything was happening to me. You know what I mean? I complained about everything. I was that type of person. And along with the health and wellness came this personal development. So I dove into it. I was like, because like I said, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you just dive into everything, and you're willing to do anything that comes with it. So I dove into the personal development aspect of it, and I realized, and I still do it 5 years into the business, and every day I read something or listen to a video or something. And so my mindset shifted a lot too. I became a lot more motivational. I became a lot more positive. I became a lot more, I've always been like, you're right about the psychology. I've always been a people's therapist. Like, that's always been like, I joke like I should have been a psychiatrist. So I've always been like that, but I'm more so like, I've always been supportive, but like my outlook changed. That's what it was. My mindset changed. And so that was a huge shift also that people noticed. So people like, wait, what are you doing? Where's the character? And I didn't change who I am. I'm very sarcastic in nature. I'm very blunt. I'm very real. That none of that changed. Like, the core of me didn't change, but a lot of other things changed about me. And to your point earlier about college, about what you saw, my daughter's a sophomore in college right now too, and she's off campus. So she's virtual, but in an off campus apartment. And I was like, if you want to go, cool. If you don't, cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's because of what I now know. I'm like, I get that you can be an entrepreneur. There's so many other things you can do. It's not a requirement per se, if you know what I mean. And I know people go crazy about that, but whatever. So that's kind of what happened. So people are like, wait, what are you doing? I don't understand. So that's when the conversations start happening about, well, this is what I'm doing. And then it became sort of, wait a minute. I really enjoy this, and I know all these things that I didn't know. I did Slim Fast back in the day, I did Weight Watchers, all these things, and I'm not knocking any of it, but it was the mentality of it. To sustain a healthy lifestyle, you have to have the right mindset, because if otherwise it's like a quick fix and you're going to be done and you're never going to go up. But
So
that's why
what
it's
was
on and
it?
off.
I got to jump in here. So what was it that you learned? Because a lot of people today, in this time that we're recording in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hmm.
So a lot of people are working from home. A
Yep.
lot of people's lives, their routines have been altered. I've been working from home now for 9 months. My routine has been, well, my old routine was altered. My
Right.
new routine is
Right.
doing certain things. Was there something that you learned before that has helped you through the time that we're in now?
That it's my choice. That's what I
Wow.
learned. I learned that I have the choice of how I react to things. I have the choice to whether or not to do things. I said I was too busy. I watched, and what happened, and I took I had the choice, but I also took inventory. I actually looked in the mirror and took inventory of myself. And doing that is really, really hard and really, really messy and really, really ugly, to be perfectly honest. But I think necessary whenever it is that you do something, whatever that may be, and if you're willing to make a change. And so that's what I learned. I learned that it's really important to look inward, really ask yourself a lot of hard questions, and that you honestly have the choice. Listen, things
Mhm.
happen. We're in a pandemic. I get it, but
Yeah.
there's only so much I can control about this pandemic, specifically, I mean, about this pandemic and just everything around me. What can I control and how do I react to that? That's what I learned about that. And I learned about I learned about that it's really important to work your mind, honestly, just as
Yeah.
it's really important. Health and wellness is not just about what you're feeding yourself in terms of your mouth. It's also what you're feeding your mind and who you're surrounding yourself with. So that was like a big, huge, huge lesson for me, because I was always a very loyal person to a fault.
Well, and I love what you said there about, and you used a word intentionally. You used the word inventory. And so when you take a physical inventory, if you own a retail establishment or you own something that has physical product to it, and you take an inventory, you are looking everywhere and you're specifically counting everything.
Right.
You don't want to miss anything because that affects the numbers that you have to report and put on the books and things like that. And I think when people say, "Well, I've taken inventory of everything," I saw in what you just said, and those you'll see it on video, and hear what I heard you say, that you were intentional about really looking at everything. Because, and again, I wanted to pull that out of what you said, inventory, because if you're really going to take inventory of your life and what you're doing, you've got to look at everything. You can't just look at what's in front of you and say, well, this must be it. You've got to go a little deeper, right, Karen?
Right, exactly. But that's the part, that's where it gets hard. And that's why people don't, or they tiptoe into it and then realize how hard it is and don't want to do it. And that's why I say it's messy and it's ugly. But you know what? I was afraid, I think also, that I was going to change who I was. Like, oh, doing all of this was going to change me at the core, and it didn't. And I think that's also what I like to tell people, is that you don't have to change at the core who you are. It's just a matter of expanding things, and it's enriched my life. Like, I can't even tell you.
Did you
Great.
find something? Because, and I want to park here for just a minute on this concept of inventory. Did you find something as you were searching yourself
Yeah.
that you didn't think was there? Because again, and I want to go back to that concept for just a minute. When you take inventory, a physical inventory, you can say, well, our records show we should have this on hand. And invariably in companies that I've worked for that have taken physical inventories, they find, oh, this was hidden on the shelf in the back somewhere, and we didn't account for it before, and we found it. Or there's supposed to be 5 of these. There's only 2 of these. What happened to the other 3? Did you find some surprising things when you did that self-inventory reflection that you said, I didn't know these things were here, or I didn't realize I was missing these components?
It was funny. It wasn't even that I was missing. I realized I realized I was holding myself back. I'm very real and very the word authentic gets used a lot, but
I love that.
I've
I
always
love
been
that.
like that anyway. Like that's just who I am, and I show the good, bad, and ugly no matter what. But I was definitely holding myself back. Like and so I realized it was fear. Like so I realized it was funny because I was like, well, why aren't things happening? Well, because it was me. So
Yeah.
that was one of the thing is you're thinking it's other things or whatever, but when you look really hard at yourself, and I was like, why is this not working, or why is this not doing it, whatever it may be, I was like, wait a minute, I'm holding myself back. And then I was like, okay, I'm holding myself back because I was afraid of success or something, and that's exactly what it was, to be
I
perfectly
love that. You
transparent.
took
I was
ownership of that.
petrified of like that's what happened. That is my specific case. I was like, I want all these things. I want to be, financially free. I want to pay for, listen, for college for both my kids and all these kind of things. I've been financially unstable for so long.
Mhm.
And that's a huge piece for me. That's my personal story. So I was like, well, what is going on? And that's what I mean. Like when you're taking personal inventory, you got to look honestly at yourself first.
Yeah.
Because and I never believed in energy or anything like that until I started doing all this. And you are kind of the energy you attract and whatever. So it was like, well, why aren't things happening the way I think they should be happening, or I want them to be happening? Well, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not doing it full force enough that
Yeah.
it should be done. And I realized I was afraid of success. And honestly, this pandemic made me, the real aha moment was just stepping into it. Just now I got to
Yeah.
just step into my power. And that's what I've been doing.
Karen, what's the biggest thing? And I love what you said, because you were talking about taking ownership. It was really about taking ownership.
Yeah.
So as you're coaching people as a wellness warrior, what is the biggest obstacle that you see that are holding people back from really getting to that step that they want to take? And I'm not asking you for specifics. I'm asking you in generality. What's the number one thing that you have seen that holds people back from really getting to that true wellness, physically, financially, spiritually, whatever it is?
It's the mindset, honestly. They're afraid. They're afraid to take that step, or they've attempted to change their lifestyle before and it's never worked. So they're skeptical. That's the word I was looking for. That they're skepticism is huge with a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah.
how do I know this is going to work for me? What's the difference in this compared to the 400 other health and wellness things that are out there? Those are, and the cost. Those are like the 3 biggest issues that people talk to me about. And what I drink a shake, and so it's part, and the shake is my meal. So that's the other thing. It's like, well, you want to eat food, and so people don't realize. So then it's a matter of me just, and I ask them questions. That's the other thing. I
Yeah.
talk to people and ask them questions. But yeah, people are just very, very skeptical, especially if they've done other things to try something else. Just how
Don't
do
you
they know
hate
it's
it
gonna
when you
work?
can't find a word that you're thinking about? You just kind of like you're just kind of like, I know what I want to say.
Yeah.
I know
Yep.
I know what I want to say, and I know how I want to say it. And then it's kind of like, but where did it go?
Mhm.
Hey everybody, Brian Sexton here. I want to tell you about our sponsor, SEO National. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Now, what's that, you might say? Well, search engine optimization helps you show up higher on search engines in front of paying customers for words that you as a business owner can monetize. What a great concept. SEO National is owned by my good buddy Damon Burton, who's been a guest here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. Not only has Damon and his team worked with businesses of all sizes, from e-commerce startups to NBA teams and Shark Tank featured businesses, but more importantly, Damon and his team are about transparency, trust, and providing lifetime value. So much so that he still has his first customers after opening SEO National 14 years ago. Let me give you some intentional encouragement and call Damon and his team today at 6285, or go to www.seonational.com and get a free quote.
I can remember song lyrics, but I can't remember words. It's just
exact. Well, listen, for me, I'll tell you this. My dad had a habit. My late father had a habit. He would go around and just sing little bits and pieces of songs just randomly. Guess who else does that?
Yep.
And I'll do the same thing. And I'm like, how in the world did I pick this up? And I guess it's just genetics. I don't know. But
yep.
Hey, let's dive into your story real quick, because you've got a fascinating story. And for full disclosure, Karen and I have been involved in something called the Positivity Chat. If you go back a few episodes, I had Steve Sullivan and Karen Markle on together. And I go back and I would encourage you to go back and listen to that podcast there. And they've got solo podcasts here on the Intentional Encourager podcast. So that's where we met. But I don't really know your story, and I want to know your story. So take me as far back as you want to take me, from point A to where we are today, and tell your story.
My story is, I grew up in Brooklyn. I got married and moved to Staten Island. That's the short version of that. I have 2 kids.
Do you know any of the Impractical Jokers? Because that
I do not.
Well, but that, because you have to think that's the number one question for people like myself that live in certain areas of the country. It's like, oh, I'm from Staten Island. Great. Do you know any of the Impractical Jokers? I will tell you this story. There was a young man that my son went to high school with. He was a year behind my son. He and his twin brother went to the same Christian school. And this young man, God love him, he was such a big Impractical Jokers fan that he created an Instagram account called Will Sal Respond. And every day he would send Sal a message and just hoping that he would respond. And Sal never responded. And so I got into where I tweeted to him and I said, please respond to this young man. You would make his world if you responded to him. And it became, and I don't think to this day, the 2 young men graduated this past spring. And I don't know that Sal Volcano ever respond. If you see him in Staten Island,
I will tell him.
Please tell him to respond to Robert Clutter here in West Virginia.
I absolutely will. I absolutely will. So that was it. And, I was, I'm the typical, like I said, you go to college, you get a job, whatever. So I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I switched things and I went into advertising. So I worked in advertising after I graduated college for many, 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 many years. And then, like I said, and I loved it and I enjoyed it and I had a lot of parties, and I started in 92 in corporate America and advertising. And it's a great industry. It really is. It's a fun, awesome, great industry. And
you're in the epicenter of the advertising, the world there in the New York City area.
Yeah. So I worked in advertising agencies. I worked in different various companies and whatnot. And it was a really, really awesome. I loved it. I mean, I just did. I really, really enjoyed advertising. I enjoyed the people. There was nothing bad about it. But like I said, 5 years ago, well, more than that, I actually said no for 4 years. So, I started working out after my father had passed away 9.5 years ago. I just needed an outlet. And so I met all these people and then all these people were introduced to this program, this health and wellness company. And
Karen,
so they went on.
Karen, let me jump in there. I think that's really important because you and I have a connecting piece there with losing our dads. And you said you needed an outlet.
Yeah.
And I think what happens at times is, and I can totally empathize with that, because when you lose a parent, someone close to you like that, I lost my dad. My dad and I worked together when I lost him. You really, I love what you said. I had to jump in there and park on that, because that is so important, because you need something to fill that void in your life. Mm-hmm. You need something to release that grief and that stress and that emotion. 100%. Can I ask for just a minute? And again, you as comfortably as you want to tell that, when you lost your father 9.5 years ago, what was the outlet that you sought, and how did it help you kind of get through that grief period that you were having? Because that speaks to me
Yeah, it
one
was,
directly.
and yeah, and it was unexpected. It was not
Mine was my same thing with my father. Totally,
not
totally
expected.
unexpected.
So it was really hard, and I was worried about, my mom and stuff like that. So
Yeah, me too.
and
Yeah.
I'm here and my brother's in Texas. So it was like everything was kind of on me. And so, because my mom still lives in Brooklyn, but no, so that's what happened. It's funny. My cousin, taught Zumba. So, my father died in April of 11, and it was really, really hard. And my cousin kept posting about her Zumba on Facebook, come join me in my Zumba class or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Fine.
Yeah.
Because I used to work out in my 20s, 9.5 years ago, I was in my 40s. And so I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll go to her class and see what it's about, because I needed something. It was like at night, and it was at night. That was the other thing. Because at least I could, then come home from work. My kids were 9 and 5 at the time. My husband was home. It's something I can do for me, because I never did
Yeah.
anything for me.
Yeah.
And so I started going to her class. So that was kind of my outlet. And then from her class, there was another person in her class that became a Zumba instructor. That person was introduced to the health and wellness company. And we were all in the Zumba family together. And so I knew what they were doing and everything. I saw them lose weight. I saw them earn money, doing, sharing this with others and whatnot. And that's when I finally, after 4 years, I was like, wait a minute. Like I said, I don't feel good. I had quit smoking. So a year after my father died, I quit smoking. Then I started probably back then, I started slowly taking the inventory of myself. And then
Do you
5 years
think
ago, I
it
was like,
was
okay,
that moment? And
oh,
I
for
don't
sure.
mean to interrupt you, but
For sure.
was it that moment in your life where you said, this may be, because life has a way,
Yeah.
Karen, of just laying things in our lap,
Yeah.
that force us into different things,
Yeah.
and doing different things, and having and being different things. Do you feel like that your father's death really was that moment for you where you said, here's the impetus for change that I really need, and I've needed for a long time?
100%, but I didn't know it at the time, if that makes any kind of sense.
It makes
Like,
perfect sense. It makes perfect, because here's the thing, and I wanted to, that's the reason I wanted to kind of park there for just a second, because so many people, as we record this, and 2020 has just been an unbelievable year. I'm 48 years old. I've never seen a year like it.
mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are going through those moments where they have said, I've had something, or I know someone
Mm-hmm.
that had a life-altering event,
Yep.
and had that moment of, oh my goodness, this has rocked me to my core. I felt that when my dad passed away 8 years ago. As we record this today, today is the 8th anniversary of my father's memorial
Oh.
service. I had to step into that spot and deliver my dad's eulogy. I didn't have to, I wanted to. But again, to your point, Karen, and I think this is a really important conversation, is that sometimes in life, the darkest, worst thing that happens to us turns out to be the best thing
Yes.
that happens to us.
Correct.
So you decide to pour yourself from this tragic event. You decide to pour yourself into health and wellness.
Yep.
What happened after that? Kind of take me, you quit smoking, you're starting to do some things in your
Yeah.
life that are
So I
positive.
quit smoking. I was still doing, so I started the Zumba and I kept doing that, but then I was also doing different types of, I thrive in a class setting when I go to the gym. So I was doing boot camp classes. So then I just started doing more difficult, more challenging things in the gym and whatnot. And then I started in the health and wellness. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, I can actually take care of me, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Because as a mom and a wife, and just as I think as women, we just take care of everybody else but ourselves.
That's a great point. That is really a great point, because my wife, for the last 3+ years, of her grandfather's life, and we just lost our grandfather almost a month ago. He was 90, almost 99.
Wow.
And she, my wife, we live next door to my wife's grandparents, and my wife stepped in when his dementia started to present itself. She stepped in and really became his caregiver, and until he went to an assisted living facility. So you're right. I think those God-given maternal instincts just kick in.
Yep.
And you ladies see things a lot of times that even the most sensitive of guys don't see. And it's like, well, I've got to start doing this. I've got to do this and that. And sometimes, and I'll be very transparent, Karen. A lot of times men don't understand that because we go, well, wait a minute, I'm getting left out in the cold here. I want, affection or things like that. And I'm being left out here. And it's not the case. It's that instinct inside of a woman, that natural instinct that says, okay, but somebody else needs to be taken care of first and need to be met. Did you start seeing parts of yourself emotionally, physically, because physically, I'm sure exercise, it changes you and you look different and feel different, things like that. Did you start to tap into some emotional things as well too?
Oh, I'm generally a happy-go-lucky type of person anyway.
That's why we get along so well. I just don't care.
First of all, and also, by the way, it's interesting, just to address, my father had Alzheimer's. It's funny, but he died before it got worse. So I kind of I'm like, it's not such a bad thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that your wife's grandfather had dementia. But no, I absolutely, it was interesting because once I started exercising, once I started quitting smoking, once I started, with the program, I was like, it was different. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And because also it was about who I was spending my time with too. So all of that combined, like I said, I'm normally happy-go-lucky. I really don't care.
Yeah.
About a lot of, how people think of me and whatnot. I mean, I do dance breaks live on Facebook every day, so clearly I'm insane. But
people just hear me talk and they go, "Yeah, Brian,
you know what I mean? Oh,
you're insane."
totally.
Yeah.
But I started to notice that how I spoke to my kids was different. So that was, you know what I mean? Like, it was how I spoke to others was different. Like how I dealt with things was different. So I totally started noticing, not just a physical and not just in terms of that, but totally how I was like, dealing with certain things. And I also felt less overwhelmed. That was the big thing that I felt. I was like, I'm running all over the place. I feel like I don't have 5 seconds, you know what I mean? That kind of a thing. And I kind of felt like almost Zen-like, if that makes any kind of sense. So
no, it makes perfect sense because
like all that.
Well, if when you are starting to accomplish things, you do feel like you can tackle the world because you started to overcome this really big, huge obstacle in your life. And in overcoming those things, accomplishments build on top of themselves. But what accomplishment does, it is an incredible confidence booster. So I totally understand why you would feel the way that you felt, in that you're saying to yourself, oh my, I am really, I'm kicking butt right now. I'm performing at such a high level.
Yeah. And I was, and then I started doing things I never thought I could do or would want to do, like a rugged maniac. I mean, like, it was ridiculous. I was just doing crazy, crazy things, and it was awesome.
And that's the thing too, is that you understand that when you do those kinds of things, then you say to yourself, what else can I do? So
exactly.
So take me a little bit further to where you are now. Did that kind of build on that and say, okay, look, if I can transform myself, I can help other people. And really, what was that moment for you where it all just came together and you said, this is it, the wellness warrior, this is it?
honestly, even though I've been doing it for 5 years, more recently, like I always knew I can do it and whatnot. Um, but my corporate job ended the same time that COVID hit, quite frankly. So this year was when I was like, you know what? It's time to go full force. It's really time to just dive in and go big or go home. You know what I mean? Like I always had that niche, and I always was like very
Hmm.
passionate about showing people it's okay to be healthy. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to earn money in a different way other than like the normal and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But this year, I really dove deeper, I should say, into, you know what? No, this is going to be it for me, and I need to really be bolder and just go out there and just show the world what this is all about and be
Wh-
unapologetic about it.
When you lost your corporate job, kind of take me through some of those feelings. Were you relieved, or did you say, were you relieved in that you said to yourself, and I don't want people to misunderstand where I'm asking the question.
I actually, and not to interrupt you, but
No, no,
I
no, go,
understand.
please.
I understand what you're saying exactly, and actually, so I was in. I think it was 3 years ago. I lost and I was turning 50. So 3 years ago, I lost a job, and I was turning 50, and that hit me big time. Like that was just like, because you know what, and what I realized was that, and I was a mess for months, and this is also true about you are the energy you attract, because when you're a mess and when you're unhappy, bad things start happening.
Well,
But
Karen, 50 is a milestone for a lot
right,
of people because again, I'm going to be 50 in about a year and a half. I'm going to turn 50. And you think to yourself, my goodness, how did I get to 50? How in the world did I get to 50 and do that? And so yeah, I totally empathize with you there because that's a milestone age for a lot of people.
right. But it was, I actually didn't mind turning at 40 hit me worse than 50, but I digress. But honestly, for me, what happened, what I realized was my identity was with my job. So even though I
Yeah.
was doing my health and wellness
Yeah.
alongside of it, I'm Karen, and this is what I do for a living, and I do health and wellness on the side. You know what I mean? And I'm mom, and I'm this kind of a thing. So it was 3 years ago. That's the question you're asking. To answer that question, it was that I identified very much with that. And that's when it kind of hit me. And then I was actually freelancing this past job, so I knew the job was ending March 31st. So
Mhm.
I had in January, it was funny that everything happened. So in January, I'm like, you know what, I don't want to look for a job anymore, and I'm not
Yeah.
knocking corporate America, so don't go crazy and yell at Brian or anything, people.
Yeah.
I'm not
Please don't
knocking
yell at
it at
Brian.
all. At all. Like I
Yeah.
said, I loved advertising. I loved everything about it. I'm not knocking it all, but for me, I was like, okay, this isn't it anymore. My heart wasn't in it anymore. So I
Yeah.
knew that in January. And so my contract ended March 31st. COVID hit beginning, mid-March. And I was like, okay, that's it. It's time for me, for Karen, to, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to
Yeah.
do the health and wellness full time. So I had that weird, my job ending. What the hell do I do with my life? Sorry. Um, 3 years ago, even though
Mhm.
I knew the health and wellness, you know what I'm saying? But now this time it was more clarity. It was more like, you know what? No, this is the real time. Who knew 9 months from, who knew then what we'd be having now?
Oh,
That,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
but that's what happened for me. That's what
Absolutely.
happened for me.
So, take me through the biggest obstacle in your life, career, things like that. And it could be, going back to when you lost your father, that's a huge obstacle. But take me through the biggest obstacle that you faced in your life and what was the lesson you learned from it?
Oh God, that's a really, really good question.
We try. I really do try. It's the blind squirrel theory in full effect,
That's
Karen. Sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
um actually, I don't know that my father dying was my biggest obstacle. Um, but that led to so many things. I've had a lot of different obstacles in my life that I've overcome. I always talk about how I get knocked down and get back up again. Um, Infertility was one. I would say my top two, honestly, before my father dying. My father was also very ill for many, many years. So
Mhm.
an obstacle is also being a caregiver, quite
Yeah.
frankly. But infertility. I actually had secondary infertility trying to get pregnant with my son, and that's really difficult to get through, especially when you have already a child, and what people are saying to you and how people are reacting to you doing things that they may not believe in. My
Mhm.
son is an IVF baby, and I know that doesn't agree with a lot of people, but which is fine, and you're entitled to your opinion, but I had
Exactly.
to overcome that. That was huge. A lot of
Well, you
people,
know what
and
that speaks
overcoming the when are you having a second child? You
well, you
know,
know what that speaks to me, and I want to park here for just a second. What that speaks to me is how desperately you value life.
yeah,
Because and I know a ton of people that would give anything to have children.
yep,
They've gone through the different I have a really good friend of mine. He and his wife ended up adopting a little girl because they tried everything to get pregnant and to have a child on their own. And they physically could not. And, again, it just proves, and whatever your stance
right,
is, I am staunchly pro-life. I'm unashamedly staunchly pro-life. Whatever you decide what you want to do, that's up to you. That's
right,
between you and God. You have to answer for
right,
that yourself.
exactly.
But I just I have to wonder out loud. You and your husband wanted another child. You wanted another child. Good grief. I mean,
Yeah,
that's awesome. You choosing life. I mean, and I didn't mean to jump in there.
that's
My
good.
respect for you is
Thank you.
I already had a great deal of respect for you anyway. That just enhances that because what the decisions that you
Yeah.
made. You were going to another obstacle real quick, and I want to
No, I
give
was
you
just
that space to do that.
it was my father dying, but it was a matter of, my mom is 79 at the moment, and my dad would have been 81 on Christmas Eve. And so they're from the era of, they were very young when they got married, they had
Yeah,
kids young, and the mother and the wife did everything for for the husband. Like that was the
yeah,
era. My parents got married in 1962. And so when my father died, I actually remember after Shiva, because I'm Jewish, bringing my mom home back to Brooklyn and standing in her apartment saying to her, I don't want you dead and buried next to dad in a year from now. I was completely
yeah.
convinced that she was going to be dead next to him because she was so shy. And so I get my insanity from my father. And
Me too. Me
she
too.
was
Yeah,
she was so shy and so reserved. And I begged her to go back to the senior center. They were both retired at the time. I'm like, just please go back to the senior center. I was really concerned that she was going to shrivel up and die next. I'm not even joking, like to be
yeah.
totally honest. And so that was huge. And by the way, I've never been more excited to be proven wrong in my entire life. My mother is literally never home. Like, well, now she
That's
is with COVID,
wonderful. That is
but
so good.
she really came out and whatever. But that was a huge obstacle for me. Was oh my God, like my father died. Here I have my widowed mother. What do I do? And what do you do? And losing a parent's
Yeah.
really like it's you never get over it. You just learn to live with it.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Karen, I've got one more question, and you've listened to the Intentional Encourager podcast. So you know where I'm going with this. What's your biggest piece of intentional encouragement for folks out there today?
I knew where you're going and I still don't know. You know what? My biggest piece of encouragement is to put one foot in front of the other. Honestly, I always say this, you never know what's going on inside somebody's house. You honestly don't. People could be smiling and yet they're homeless. Like you honestly never know. So the encouragement is no matter what's going on, put one foot in front of the other because that's movement and that gives you momentum to keep going.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. What a great place to end our conversation. Go to LinkedIn and connect with Karen there. Karen, Caren Cooper, Cooper. I would highly encourage you to connect with her there. Any other platforms that folks can connect with you on or website that you want to share with folks?
If you can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram, on both of those. And, my health and wellness company, if you ever want to check it out, it's www.carencooper.isogenics.com. If you want to just check it out, what it's all about.
Karen, www.carencooper.isogenics.
.isogenics.com. ISAGENIX.
Can you spell that again? Because dummy me, I jumped in there and interrupted. So go ahead, take
I'll
go through
spell
that
it out.
website.
www.CarenCooper.isagenics, ISAGENIX.com.
KarenCooper.isagenics.com is her website. Caren, this has been so much fun. What a great conversation we've had today. I so appreciate you joining me on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
I thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through His Word. And until next time, remember, everyone, everywhere, at any time, and any place, can be an intentional